Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good evening all dear viewers. Welcome to my show, Sports Talk. This is your host Hussain Mahmood, bringing you live debates on UC TV. Many thanks for all your support and encouragement. Please continue to like, share and comment on media content being published on my fan page, Sports Talk TV and UC TV. Subscribe for ongoing notifications. We've completed 10 episodes so far and we're getting closer to getting to know why we are not yet seeing British South Asians breaking into top flight football. Before I do continue on with the show this week, I do want to express my views on the current situation with our lockdown and COVID. I do wish everybody stay safe, stay well and keep a positive, helpful mindset. Do encourage to support one another through this pandemic and educate yourselves on what the next steps are with the guidelines that have been set out. Moving on, all episodes are up on demand on my Facebook fan page, Sports Talk TV and UCTV YouTube with the green logo. Watch, like and share your views. We're breaking the mould and making the change happen. The topic we're pressing needs attention, so Sports Talk provides a platform to give our youth hope and added intelligence on and off the pitch so that they can advance their developments and break through into top flight football. Diversity, equality and a fair qualification system being our number one agenda. We've learnt so much so far and I've brought people who have shed their light and experiences ranging from referees to ex-professional footballers, and we're most definitely getting closer to breaking the mould and making the change happen. I need you and we need this change to happen because one man can achieve great things, but a team can achieve incredible things. Alongside myself today, I have my guest who started playing at a young age in local junior leagues, signed in for Blackburn United at the age of 17 and played several positions, both attacking and defensive at the same time. He also played for CARNIVOREZ FC Preston, club captain for 5 years, dominated the seven-a-side leagues at Witton Parks for over 10 years plus, player of the season several times, back-to-back league wins and cup titles. He's won many regional and national five-a-side tournaments with Canaries mainly in Preston, and is currently still involved in local football, supporting Blackburn United junior teams and coaching the girls' football. So, without further ado, let's bring our very own Imran Akuji, aka Jimmy, and let's talk sports. Assalamu alaikum, Jimmy.
Walaikum assalam.
I must say, Imran Akuji, first of all, how are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah, very well, thank you.
MashaAllah. First and foremost, as always, for all my guests, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm really looking forward to some of your insights and some of your experiences that we could share with the youth and the audience and the viewers today.
After that introduction, I hope I live up to it.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will, bro. Am I okay to call you Jimmy?
Yeah. You're comfortable with the no problem.
Great. So Jimmy, what I want to know first of all is you played for Blackburn United, as I mentioned, at the age of 17. Was that's on grass?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your experiences before you joined Blackburn United? I mean, how did it start for you?
To be fair, I was probably like a lot of local lads around Blackburn, Preston and the local areas. Initially it was all about having a kickabout with the friends. Football was very different in our time when we were younger, going back 25 plus years. And there were some of our older generation, I know you've had Uncle Latch, as we call him affectionately.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
People like that were and Eunice Morgan and others were very instrumental in developing local football. But you always started off with a kickabout with the local friends. I remember days when we used to make goalposts out of jackets and play football.
Yeah, I remember them days.
And from there we entered into some local leagues. So I played at Playgate in junior teams, under 14, under 15 and played for Millionaires in our under 16s team. But there was, I'd say compared to now, there were limited opportunities or access into football at that level. I was probably a little bit older for when things like Hawthorn League started.
The classic Hawthorn League, yeah.
Now the Hawthorn League gave a lot of younger players, they're probably 2-3 years younger than me, some of the guys who played in that league, gave them a real good opportunity to start playing level-side football from a young age. But I was one of few that got to play in some junior teams. Generally you find a lot of the local lads played in a local football pitch or on the Mugger or in the park. And for me, yeah, again, I played against the English teams predominantly. There were very few Asian teams, junior teams them days when we used to play. And opportunities were limited. I personally then played for a team called Millionaires. It was a great team actually, some real characters, some friends I made from Millionaires that are still lifelong friends with me now, to be fair. And then I stopped playing football for a little while. There's about 2-3 years spell where as I started coming out of high school, I got a real interest in basketball, and that's all I played. You'd see me on the streets, bouncing the ball about. And then there was a big initiative from kind of national initiative from British basketball to promote basketball across different communities. So a professional called Jamison Edwards came out, did loads of coaching with us, loads of funding was available, we built outdoor courts. So I really took to it, and I played in local basketball leagues. In Hindborough was the closest one. And then a friend of mine, close friend of mine, that guy called Mustafa Sadiq, lives a few doors up from me when I was younger. He dragged me back into playing him and Soggy and people like that back into 11-a-side football, 7-a-side football, and that was when I started playing again back to football competitively, playing on a 7-a-side league at Witton Park, and kind of it took from there. A few players would then get drafted all the time to go and play for Blackburn United, or I say Blackburn United because at that time that was the only 11-a-side Asian team or club available for us to play for. So a lot of us got drawn into playing for Blackburn United, and kind of the rest is history really. Played for several.
Yeah, well, that answers my question very well actually. I'm interested in that basketball that you've got interested in there. I mean, you mentioned there the classic Hawthorns League. We had, I'm sure you know a guy called Khalid Isa.
Oh yes, I know Khalid.
Yeah, and Khalid and his dad Ismail, he sat on the show as well. So we did touch on the Blackburn Classic Hawthorn League. Am I right to say that the Blackburn United team was once the Blackburn Muslim United team?
I have heard
I'm from
that.
Accrington, you see, and I obviously would play my football in Accrington at these times. And I'm just kind of putting it all together now. Khalid also give a shout out to Mushy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it's the same Mushy.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so shout out to Mushy once again. Quite a familiar name in the circuit.
Yeah, no, he's a legend. He's provided opportunities for a lot of young lads to play both 7-a-side and 11-a-side. Every team or club needs a Mushy.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah, the guy who organises things, gets the teams picked, does all the running around, gets you entered into the league, gets the kits clean at the end of every game, etc., etc. So all that back kind of office stuff, but also a guy who'd give you a chance to come and play, and and on the pitch he was brilliant. He was probably people undervalue the contributions Mushy made. Everybody needs a workhorse like Mushy. Obviously I'm a bit biased. He's a very close friend, dear friend of mine for many years. But
the effort goes.
Absolutely. I think every team needs a Mushy on the you've got half a chance of winning.
Right. So I'm getting a better picture of Mushy now. So he was the guy who's kind of pulling the strings, making it happen.
On and off the pitch.
On and off to the pitch. There's a lot of things going on in a football pitch, isn't it? A football team especially when it comes to the selection. So I suppose there's got to be a senior personnel who's actually got to manage all that.
Which was always very fair though. You played well. He had his core group of players, and you played well.
You're going to get a game.
Yeah, you're in same team. Winning team starts. You didn't tinker about with the team. Winning team starts.
Sure.
Until you lose or you underperform, then you replace. And
so going from playing a bit of football at high school, then kind of stopping and looking at an alternative sport in basketball, and then coming back onto playing in football in Witton and getting onto Blackburn United in Blackburn. What field did you get playing on grass? I mean, for me, I've always said it, my viewers will know that grass football, 5-a-side, 7 football, there is a difference there. Am I right to say that, John?
Oh, absolutely. Although it's football, they're two very different games in terms of tactical and fitness. And that's not to belittle one or the other. So, there's an aspiration, everybody wants to play 11-a-side football, and that's great. It's a real thinking game as well as fitness. But you can't belittle 5-a-side and 7-a-side football, particularly. Some of the biggest crowds I saw playing when I was younger was on the Friday night league at Witton Park, which termed the Asian League. And you'd get, you walk along the 4 pitches at Witton Park, there'd be hundreds and hundreds of people watching different games. And they were some of the biggest crowds I saw. Because I was playing, whether you play 5-a-side or 7-a-side or 11-a-side, there's certain kind of elements of qualities of football that exist in all of them. Your competitiveness in all of them is still the same. You get...
Definitely, I could agree with that.
You get characters in there, like your leaders,
Yeah, you're still going to get your captain, you're still going to get a shout in that.
You get, you develop some core skills, things like teamwork, the commitment for being there every game and the drive and determination to try and win every game. Them kind of qualities whether you're playing 5, 7 or 11, they still exist.
They follow through, don't they? Absolutely.
And like I was saying, in our time, when we were younger, there were only one, there was Blackburn United as the first team, and then as a senior team, and then Bangkok was formed by Shoaib and a few others, and the legend Ali. I'm not sure if you've come across him, but he needs a shout out as well. Super agent Ali.
I've not come across him so far, Jimmy.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. He's got a lot of good opinions. So Ali
is he played as well, Jimmy?
He played less than he manages.
Okay.
But he's again, he probably doesn't deserve some of the credit he gets for a lot of the running around and the work he does to support other people to play.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people.
Do they get enough credit? Do you think?
No. Sometimes players, especially when you're younger, you just turn up and expect things to be done, and there's always somebody doing the running around in the background for you.
Absolutely. So, it's in a kitchen, for example, you need all the chefs to pull through, don't you? You need all the ingredients in the dish to make a fine to make a fine dish. I get that. I want to touch on something you mentioned there, Jimmy, and my viewers will know. And when you were speaking there, I'll give a quick look over to the camera. That I've always thought to myself that five-a-side and seven-a-side football is a training session. It's more the case of getting used to the ball. Like you say, there's a couple of attributes within a game that you can kind of pick up and kind of build within a five-a-side pitch. But coming back to the original question is, the moment you walk onto that grass, and if it's a rainy morning and your feet start to sink into that grass, and there's parts of the pitches where it's going to be uneven bounce, you just know you don't know which way it's going to go, so especially if it's frosty a little bit. So, I mean, what kind of what kind of feel did you get as a player moving on to a football on the grass, and what kind of game sets did you have to change within your own self to adapt to them type of conditions?
I'll answer in two parts. I'll answer in the first part when you said 7-a-side is kind of pitch. The pitch is a bit different. It's a bit more training kind of facility. I tend to disagree a little bit. I think people can play 7-a-side for the sake of playing 7-a-side. Some people choose not to go to 11-a-side, and 7-a-side is their league, and that's where the competition is for them. Quite often, when a lot of players like myself went from 7-a-side to 11-a-side, the first thing that you notice is the pitch, and a lot of pitches, and they've vastly improved these days. I've got to be honest with you. There's been a lot of investment in football pitches locally. Whether it's at Pledgate or Pleasanton, or the 4G pitches have appeared across the town. But
Blackburn especially.
Blackburn's
a great development.
And some of the, I played the better.
I only say that, Jimmy. I'm sorry to stop you there. I will allow you to answer. No, I'm very interested to know what your insight is, because Yasser was on the show before from Coppish United.
Oh yes.
And he was, he was quite concerned with regards to the lack of facilities. Them boys think that the Oldham lads we're talking about here is they've got all the passion in the world, and Yasser had plenty of passion. He had great passion. But he was concerned about the facilities. So in comparison to other areas, so to say, Blackburn is most definitely
absolutely
well developed.
And there's 7-a-side pitches as well as 11-a-side pitches. There's quite a bit. But when you go from playing on that AstroTurf or a 3G, 4G surface to grass, especially at the era when we used to play, the pitches were not that great. There were bobbles everywhere. There were puddles. You could see ditches filled with sand. So things like your first touch or passing and allowing you not to bobble and being able to control it first time, all of that took there was some technique required, and that's probably where some players may struggle from transitioning from 7-a-side to 11-a-side, because that surface is very different. I think they're both football. There's just different tactics and different qualities required to play the game at 7 and 5 than there is at 11. But the surface, without a doubt, was probably the first thing I noticed, thinking, God, this is going to be difficult. The ball's bouncing around and
heavier on the feet.
Absolutely, the pitch is bigger, and if it's a boggy pitch,
slower getting off.
Yeah, when the pitch is boggy,
you could put a through ball in and it'll just stop.
You think it's going through and it just trickle and stop in the puddle. Yeah, so we got a lot of that. And then you try and keep the ball off the ground.
Off the ground, and you don't want to go into.
And it contradicts some of the best football we saw being played. Even when we were younger, the Arsenals, the Barcelonas, etc. One-touch football, what Man City, Liverpool play now.
Yeah, it's just not. You can't
play on surfaces like that. You can't even train your young people that used to play on a surface like that. So you're telling them, keep it off the ground, just knock it 2 yards in the air, knock it over the top.
Yeah, dinky or what.
But our strengths, we weren't the biggest of lads quite often, so our strengths lay in keeping on the deck, keeping them short, moving around the opposition. And again, pitches have improved massively now. There's been a lot of investment by kind of Sport England and local council, etc. So they are a lot better. Even the junior pitches, the youth team pitches are a lot better standard than they were. And which does help, because that then allows you to play to your potential, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well answered, Jimmy. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. So, whilst you was there then, so you're getting used to the pitch, you're getting used to the lads. Did you know the lads already? Because you mentioned you got picked from Witten and stuff that. So, your teammates you already knew about and stuff?
Yeah, and that's probably quite often what you find when there's only very few teams, 1 or 2 teams in a town, Asian teams predominantly. So I played Sunday League for an all-white team as well when I used to play for Blackburn United. Quite often, because of work, I couldn't make the early seasons. I couldn't make every week, so I used to play on a Sunday morning as well before I started playing for Canaries in Preston. But what you find quite often is that they generally there's always a core group of players that are friends, and this was partly one of the differences I noticed from playing within an Asian team and an English team, was that football mattered to you because it wasn't just about that 90 minutes. You'd be talking about it for the rest of the week with the friend circle.
You got banter rights, you know, everything, haven't you?
Well, some of the English teams, the players did not meet each other. There was no communication until they met either in training in midweek or the week after for the next game.
Okay, so they were like fully dedicated on the game.
For that, but there was no connection between them. They lived in different parts of the borough, some slightly even outside of Blackburn. For Asian teams, even now, you kind of generally come from certain communities, so you know each other. And and one of the things I'd say from football is I've made lifelong friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
From being playing from a young age, people I know now I've known just simply through football, but they become very dear friends to me for many, many years now. So just more my friends that
you're right there, Jimmy.
We've developed friendships.
You're absolutely right, and I've always thought, and everybody's got their own kind of passion and kind of vision within the game once they've got the ball under their feet. They've all got this super shine, superstar type of a feel kind of thing, if they believe in themselves to that level. Now my viewers will know, and you've probably seen the shows before, Jimmy, I've always said that football is a language. I've always thought it to be a language. When you're passing that ball around, you kind of know where your players are, you trust where they are, and you trust kind of to make that ground. So it's not just a game, it's more of a language when you're passing, and that's why you make really good friends. Would you agree with that?
Very deep and philosophical, that was.
Yeah, very I know. That's why I'd love to take your insights.
I think friends are. I just from our perspective as well. When you're playing against the opposition, and when the only Asian team, there was quite often the team. People wanted to beat you quite often. I think so. There was, as well as being teammates and being able to play football. There was that thing about what you call battling on the pitch together, standing up for one another.
Right. Soldiers in arms.
Brotherhood. Was that element of that, what Jose Mourinho always instills in his team. There's always an element of togetherness and let's fight for this.
Absolutely.
And that again comes with friendship.
Brothers.
And then you carry that on outside of football as well. So probably some of the worst things we did was played a really good game of football, 90 minutes, tired ourselves out, good fitness, and then went and had a kebab. That took the banter away from football.
Come next week, you start from ground zero.
Yeah, absolutely, them kebab rolls, they weren't great for our diet.
Well, I've also mentioned this to our viewers that part 1 to 5 it is about identifying why we're not seeing British South Asians getting into top flight football. Now, as a banter, you mentioned the kebabs going after the pitch, but how many times does that happen, Jimmy? And it's the same for English white folks. If they're going into to the pub. I used to play for a team in Accrington Globe FC. It's pretty much all my friends from Accrington Globe FC, and straight after the game they used to go in for a beer and to the pub, and I used to be like, it's not for me. But there's plenty of calories in that beer. There's lots of calories. It's probably the same as a kebab. But why I'm mentioning that on this moment for our viewers is that lifestyle, diets, attitude is all part and parcel of the package. It's part of the package, isn't it, Jimmy?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I think we still need to be educated, if I'm going to be honest with you, as a community, in terms of what is required to play from an amateur level to a semi-pro, and then to that elite level to be a professional, and multiple factors that play a part in this. Diet, absolutely. Diet generally, though, in all fairness, obesity is a huge issue across towns like Blackburn and in deprived areas. Obesity or just generally the diet and eating the right things the night before, the day before, and eating the right things for training, etc., to have your energy levels, the right level of carbs and protein, etc. I'm finding that balance. That's it's an education, if I'm going to be honest with you, and we probably lack some of that. Or we certainly did in the time when we used to play. But beyond that, I think you mentioned the word dedication. I think sometimes it's also underappreciated how much time and effort and dedication needs to be invested into football by young people who are, as much as they want to dream of playing for a professional football team or becoming a professional footballer, it's years of dedication, years of hard work, and even then, only a very small percentage. You've got to think there's thousands and thousands of children, black, white, playing football up and down the country, and a very small, less than 1% make it as a professional.
You're absolutely
so
right.
you've got to think it's got to take.
You've got to think where the competition is.
Absolutely.
What's it going to take?
So there's a lot of dedication required. Both I know of some families who have and culturally as well. There's a shift in kind of how we introduce professional football within our culture and our community. So I'll give you an example. There were young players I know who were good and who were invited for trials, but missing madrasa was as absolutely no from their parents. Now we're in a different generation now, and I understand. And I know there's some local clubs, Abu Hanifa being one of them, and a couple others who will accommodate if a child gets a trial to go and accommodate, allowing them to go for them trials and be part of football in the evenings. But there wasn't a lot of that, and there still probably isn't now, if I'm going to be honest with you. So culturally or religiously, we need to balance some of this as well. That if the missing madrasa, can we compensate for that by teaching them at another time that's more suitable, etc.
Absolutely.
There's ways around.
Not saying not do it at all.
Yeah.
We're just managing the timetable kind of thing.
I think there's a way around a lot of this, but I think, like I said, there's multiple factors. We need to look at diet, we need to look at dedication, we need to look at some of our cultural barriers. But there are other barriers within football, one would argue as well. Rarely do you hear about scouts coming to look at Asian teams or Asian players. And I know some players have been spotted, because there's a couple of lads from Blackburn United who have filed, and clubs like that locally who have been signed up not so long ago. And we had players in the past, Mohamed Firoz was signed up in Man City till he was 17, Shaky Butt was at Burnley. So we've had trickle kind of through, a few players that have trickled through over the years, but not to the extent you would expect. Now that when you look at it now, at Blackburn United, for example, club I'm close enough to, so I know we've got hundreds of kids playing every week, training every week, playing in. We've got a sports club from under 8s for kind of young people that want to have a kick about, do multi-sport activity on a Saturday morning. But then from under 8s, we've got teams in the race and the 9s, right up to the seniors, and 2 teams in the seniors. We've got a girls football team. So we've got a lot of children, a lot of young people playing through them age groups. And you've got to ask,
very good point there, Jimmy.
You've got to ask, and 1 or 2 have been tapped up, like I mentioned, Hamza from Blackburn United and 1 or 2 others, and Shaky and Momo in the past, but they were quite often tapped up because scouts were watching, and it's a fact, because it's been fed back to us. They were watching the game on the next pitch, and they saw this young lad playing in this pitch, so he looks talented, let's give him a trial, and that's how we inspired them. They didn't come to watch these games. So but it's not about race alone. This, I think there's a personal responsibility. If you really want, if a young person or a parent wants their child to be a professional footballer, and they think they're good enough, and I tell you what we think is good enough to what is required at an elite level, there's a gap.
There's a gap there.
We need a reality check in that as well.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
But if there are some, but that's not to say there aren't players who are not. Who do not have the potential to reach that. They absolutely are. And how do we fulfill that potential? Then we need to think about what kind of training we're providing for, what investment are we putting to that young person, what diet, nutritional advice, learning are we giving them, how are they training? And I don't mean training for football, but training in the gym as well. How are you conditioning your body? How are you recovering from after games? There's an education around this that we probably lack at this moment in time, or we're still learning a little bit. Locally anyway, I'm sure others will argue that exists in other parts of the county and the country, but locally I think we're still developing some of that learning. So there's a number of things that need to come together for kind of the next South Asian to break through. Yeah. I think, and there are 1 or 2. I think that there's been some players in the Premiership that have kind of broken through, but now we've got hundreds of children playing. And I've just talked about Blackburn, and Blackburn United, and then there's Abu Hanifa, I know Face, and others are developing youth teams. But neighbouring towns, Bolton have got a great setup. now, Bolton FC. AFC.
Yasser Farouk also mentioned Bolton. Doing really, really well.
Really well. They came on after Blackburn United, but they did really well.
They're kind of progressing pretty well, aren't they?
Excellent they are doing. I follow some of their work on Twitter, and then there's Fishwick Rangers in Preston. A very dear friend of ours, Fayaz. Again, he set up a youth academy there, and they're doing extremely well. So it's happening. What I'm saying is that we provided far more opportunities for the youth to play
today.
Now,
yeah.
And now and football for them is far more accessible now than it was when we were probably younger. It's probably fair to say. And Fayaz, I'll touch back on Fayaz. Fayaz bought Nelson Football Club only 5-6 years ago, and he asked me. I only say this because he asked me to be on the board with him and offer some support in the back.
Right, Fayaz, was you from Preston?
Preston, yeah, right. Fayaz Ahmed, and his vision was about providing that platform at a higher standard of football for our young Asian players or even the youth players to step up into, and credit to him and
express themselves, kind of thing.
Not just investment in terms of financial investment, but he puts a phenomenal amount of his own personal time and effort into making this success. So at that point I was making opportunities, and accessibility is probably better now than it was ever, if I'm honest with you.
Fantastic. Jamie, I tell you what, that's some really, really, really good insight. I had a few questions there, but I didn't want to stop you because...
sorry, mate, yeah.
No, but absolutely, I'm quite intrigued to understand and to learn more, and you're absolutely right. In the sense of when you say that the gap in between what we think is the level required to what the actual level required is, I'm definitely getting a feel from Sports Talk programmes and from all the guests that I've had that there's definitely that gap there. And inshallah, what we're looking to do is trying to kind of get rid of the gap altogether, eliminate it so that we are being realistic. Yeah. We need to be realistic. So
that's not to undermine those. That's not to undermine the fact that we have got very talented youth who could possibly have the potential to reach that professional level if the right support and dedication is provided for them. But a lot of our youth, and sometimes this is driven by parents, fortunately, need to maintain the right attitude to work hard, to invest their time and dedicate their life around some of this.
Absolutely, Jimmy. I'm just going to pause it there for 1 second. I'm going to take a short break. I'll be right back with you in just a moment. Stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. It's your host Hussain Mahmood, presenting live on UC TV with my special guest today, Imran Akuji, aka Jimmy. Hi Jimmy, once again. Just before the break there, Jimmy, you was touching on some really, really interesting points, and if you ask me, this 1 hour show simply ain't enough. A couple of them points that you mentioned there, I mean, we could really talk and expand on them. So I've got to go back into your kind of experience at Blackburn United. How long was you there for then, Jimmy?
I played at Blackburn United for 10, 11 years.
10, 11 years?
Yeah, so I started about 17, 18 around that age, and I had to unfortunately stop at 28. I fell ill and a long kind of ongoing illness condition which stopped me, unfortunately, in many ways, blessed in another way. So I stopped playing about age 28.
Good 10-year run then?
Yeah. When I kind of going, I felt at the time, obviously when I fell ill, I felt as though I was in my prime and really kind of understanding football better and wanted to play more, but ultimately it wasn't to be, and I fell ill and that happened.
Okay,
blessed with illness.
Yeah, we're blessed. Yeah, I'm a positive guy to say that, alhamdulillah, because everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything is a test and a challenge. It's the way we see it, and if you can't change the way it is, change the way you think about it. Jimmy, where did you go from there?
So after playing for Blackburn United,
After Blackburn United, yeah, or at the same time?
Well,
you mentioned Canaries there.
Yeah, so while I was playing for Blackburn United, I also played on a Sunday. So a team, some of the lads that I played with us at Wally Range at 7-a-side, some great players from Preston, wanted to reintroduce 11-a-side football to Preston Sunday morning. So
reintroduce. So did they have a start and then it kind of?
Well, I imagine some of their older players, like we had the likes of Lachie and Eunice Morgan and others who played.
Yeah, because Lachie took us back to 1970 something.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I was born, that.
Likewise.
So I'm imagining Preston again. There were some older players, older generation that played football. But I think for a while there was not enough 11-a-side football. Certainly not on a Sunday morning. So they wanted to reintroduce some of that 11-a-side football, and they'd asked some of us who played 11-a-side football locally, and we knew them from playing together on the 7-a-side and 5-a-side tournaments, etc. To sort of offer some support and offer some help, fill in some of the gaps where they were still trying to recruit players. So initially I just thought it would be a short-term thing. So we went in, I think it was a Division 4 at the time in Preston, and we got promoted every year on, and it was great. It was a great bunch of lads. I was captain of that team, and some of the relationships again I built there from some of the Preston lads, some phenomenal players.
So is that the team you captained then for 5 years?
5-6 years I played for them. Again, I stopped when I was.
Was that running concurrently with Blackburn United as well? So
that was Sunday morning was Preston.
Right, sure.
And Saturday afternoons was Blackburn United. Blackburn United was local and it was our team.
Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a busy weekend.
Absolutely, that's all it was. Football.
That's how you keep so fit, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I don't upstairs. I felt hence we started a little bit late to catch my breath. But yeah, so it was concurrent with Blackburn United. But Blackburn United was our team and it was our local team. We played there for years and played around some older players, and now Aslam took over. So he did a transition and put loads of new young players in, so it was great.
You've had a really busy period in that 10 years then.
I played a lot of football.
Absolutely, yeah. Because were you still playing in the Wednesday league at Witten as well?
Absolutely,
so you kind of jam-packed with football.
No, Wednesday night, summer league, Mushin put a team in, the Wally Range team, under some guys of Wally Range, and in the winter time I played for a team called Pawnbrokers for a guy called Franco, which was again brilliant, and I went and defeated both of them teams.
Well, so after guys then there, Jimmy.
Yeah, I could play a little bit. I was alright. Play a little bit. So it helps.
Good man. So what was the kind of setup at Blackburn United? I mean, who's doing what then, and what do you feel is currently? You spent a lot of time with Blackburn United there, 10 years plus. You've had put a lot of yourself into Blackburn United. And what kind of do's do you think we're doing well, and what kind of don'ts do you think we need to kind of work at, in line with the youth today breaking into top flight football? What kind of intelligence would you kind of give us on that?
I think, like a lot of local guys here, I'm no different from many of them that wore the Blackburn United shirt. It was completely kind of our club, and we put everything we had into playing for Blackburn United. And it was the only kind of club at the time, so we had a lot of competition if people wanted to come, and there was an element, some might argue about favouritism, about some positions being filled by players, and you get a lot of that because there's always competition for places and not enough places. But Blackburn United was a setup that other clubs have replicated in the Northwest since. We've been going 25 plus years now.
I was going to say that, and that's what I'm aware of, because I have been looking at, I've done a little bit of research. 25 years is a long time.
There's not many
for a football club.
Honestly, there's not many, if any, in the Northwest clubs that have had that kind of longevity. And some of that, I don't know. There's Council Sidat, Big Sid, and Ishmael and Mo Matador and Iqbal kind of started some of this.
These were the four.
Yeah, I think they were the Braves wanted to kind of put something together, and they've seen the quality of footballers.
Yeah. And Iqbal Saab is currently still.
But that's the point I was going to make. Right, that longevity, that 25 years, the one consistent and constant within that 25 years has been Iqbal. And again, he takes a lot of flack sometimes. He puts a lot of hard work into it, but his amount of time and effort he puts into Blackburn United, particularly for the youngsters, is phenomenal. And that's probably part of the reason why he's kind of the club's continuing to go. There's not many clubs that have. Over the time I played for Blackburn United, a number of teams popped up, both locally and in towns, and then very quickly disappeared after a few seasons. 25 years, people need to understand and appreciate that is a significant period of time to continue a club. And it's grown in many ways. People might say Blackburn United stood still. There were funding opportunities that came that they didn't kind of capitalise on enough. A lot of them were lottery funded, so there was always a bit of a moral dilemma for some people in the club. But what Iqbal has done really well is got a little army of volunteers around him, and I got to give a shout out to the coaches, all them youth teams. And I said, we've got from under 8 right the way through, and 2 teams in seniors, and even the senior coaches, they're all volunteers. They do it in their own time. Yes, some of them have their own children playing, their own sons playing in that team,
like
but
their own interests.
Yeah, but nevertheless,
the passion they show.
It's still there. There's still the commitment to keep doing, having training at least once a week, having the dedication to getting to the games every week. And again, the parents as well. To be fair, the parents. What the difference between kind of when we played football to now is the support, the parental support. It's a different era. Don't get me wrong. It's no criticism at all of our elders. They were establishing lives for us here and working hard to establish their lives here.
100%.
And that's no different for the parents of these days. But the parents of these days, like myself, have grown up having been able to balance life and football, because that football's been part of our life since a young age, which it wasn't for some of our parents. But we are, to be fair, there's always this saying, Islamic saying, in terms of when we talk about mosque, that we're reaping the fruit of the seeds they sowed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely.
Yeah.
So
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So the parental support these days is phenomenal. I still go and support and watch junior football.
You're seeing that a lot more.
I still get out on a Saturday and go and watch some of the local teams, some of the training, Blackburn United teams that are training, go and watch the senior, and not just Blackburn United. I'll go and
some of them will be kids, friends' kids and stuff.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of it's because it's part of the club, and I just like watching football. So if I've got a time and I've got some no commitments that day, I'm not doing the chores. I don't mind at all going to watch.
Lucky man if you're getting away from them.
Yeah, it's not often these days, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, I go to watch football, and I'll go and watch the senior games. Not just Blackburn United. I'll go and watch my friend Mushi and his team, AUDLEY Rangers. I'll go and watch Euro Garages. I like to watch good football. Some of these teams play phenomenal football. So I still try and get about. But what I do see in the junior teams is the parental support. Mainly dads, in terms of culturally, they are mainly fathers who are supporting it. But mums too. I see some mums on the sidelines as well. But again, behind the scenes, all the running around, picking the kids up, you're picking your kid up and somebody else's child up to get them to the game. The mums are doing all the work in terms of making sure the kids are up, make sure the kids washed and ironed and ready, and make sure they've cleaned their boots. And so there's an effort from both parents just to make sure the children are ready to play. And
which is great news, right?
It's fantastic. And I think we've kind of come to that. We've grown up around football, and football's been part of our lives from a young age. So now that our children are playing, we still want to be part of it. But again, back to Iqbal and the coaching staff of Blackburn United, there's an army of volunteers and coaches that put in a lot of hard work, time, effort, all weekend. Mornings, training sessions Saturday morning, games on a Sunday morning, afternoon, additional sessions in midweek. They're family men, and but they dedicate their time to some of this, which is probably the biggest difference you see. And that, I think that's again another step in the right direction for if you want to try and see whether in the future we will have Asian professional footballers. Some of this is absolutely necessary. We see it in some of the other teams. Mill Hill FC, phenomenal team locally, great youth system set up there. And again, a whole army of volunteers, really dedicated parents involved in the club. And that's where Blackburn United is. We have award nights where we see a lot of parents who come in and help out and chip in and work with the club in trying to make it successful and a celebration for their children. And so,
just make it special.
Absolutely, and I think it's a step in the right direction for us. There's some way to go in many things, but I think if you said to me, what's the difference when you played? I came home hobbling, now I'm telling me, Mum. You're telling me, who don't you want to play football? It's different, you know what I mean? So, and in our time, it was all about studying and getting a job, and, you know what I mean? Which that's still a priority for parents, but they still balance it with in terms of recognising for a holistic development of a child. That sport is very important because the point we touched on earlier, leadership, teamwork, drive, determination, attitude, all of that comes from sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can transfer them skills, any lifestyle skills, and you can transfer them anywhere. You can transfer them, amongst your friends. You can take them to a professional working environment. If you're developing leadership skills and you know how to work within a team, and then if like on the 85th minute is 0-0, you know how to step up. Yeah. And sometimes you really got to kind of dig in and get that win, and that's the driver. Yeah. That's not only a footballer. It's a confident person. It's a person who's willing to go the extra mile and break the barriers. And
that's where having the young coaches now can give you that balance between training and coaching them in terms of football techniques and tactics and fitness is one element of it, but character building, and working through young people, giving them positive messages, giving them that confidence, giving them that ability to trust themselves. Some of that is probably gets overlooked in terms of what the coaches do.
Yeah. Yes.
And again, Blackburn United have set this up, and
the mindset. You're talking in mindset and passive attitude to the game, and
that confidence building. If a child is confident, they're going to thrive. They're going to reach potential. If they're not, and
it's fertile ground, isn't it?
And the coaches provide that for me. I think Blackburn United, we've got a very good, long-standing now youth development system that's been working well, and it feeds into the under 18s and into the senior teams. So there's always an opportunity for players to stay part of the club. But the club can only accommodate so many players. There are other teams now. That's the other difference from when we played. That you've got, we had Blackburn United and then Bank Top formed. But you've still got Wally Range and Garages and Gallagher Reeves and faces coming on scene. So there's a lot more teams.
Absolutely.
So there's again opportunities and accessibility to football is still there.
From what I understand so far, Blackburn United is probably the only team that I can see in Blackburn that has a full kind of academy youth system.
Yes, yeah. It's a club compared to a team.
It's a club, yeah, exactly. That's the difference.
And we've got there's some others local. Again, I said Bolton have got a good setup. Preston have got Fishwick. I know. When we used to play locally, when we have some local tournaments, there's the Asian Image tournament, Asian Image Cup, which I love these tournaments, 11-side tournaments.
Have you been involved in that qualifiers as well? Haven't you?
Yes, I was going to come to that. So some of these tournaments. The Asian Image Cup is a great one, and there's SASA qualifiers, the Scottish qualifiers for the Scottish tournament.
And that's what Billy mentioned to me the last week's show. Actually, he mentioned that there's top 8 teams. In
the northwest.
Well, not
in the northwest, in the country. But we so you play your initial qualifier in the northwest, and again there's about 6 to 8 teams.
Yeah, but then there's teams that come from
all over the country.
Yeah.
It was interesting to go back on that when we first started.
Can I just say that's not a small level though, is it?
No,
you're talking about top 8 teams in the country.
Predominantly BME Asian teams.
Yeah, surely that's just below professional, isn't it? That's standard.
Well, no, you get some players who play on very good semi-pro level, etc. But I'm not sure whether you got a lot of professionals playing there, but you get some very good
semi-pros,
very good semi-pro level from across the country.
Ex-pros, maybe.
Ex-pros, I wouldn't know. Possibly from London, Leicester, them areas. But just for that, what we need to do locally is there's a local qualifier. There's about 6 to 8 teams, and these are great because playing tournaments 5-a-side, 7-a-side, but when you play 11-a-side you get to meet and get to know a lot of players from other towns. So you'd get a team from Preston, Bolton, Manchester, Halifax,
Oldham,
Rochdale. So over the years, some of these guys, we've become close friends with. We've got to know. I remember when we first started the qualifiers, there were 2 teams. The first year, Blackburn United got invited. Okay. They weren't aware, so the tournament organisers in Scotland invited us. The second year, there was 2 teams. There's us and a team called Park FC from Burnley, and we had the playoff, and we won and went through.
Park FC, yes, they got to mention on the Yasser's show as well.
So again, it just gives you an idea from them.
There was only 2 teams at that time.
2 teams that we were aware of, that were playing enough football. But before you know it, Preston, Bolton, Manchester, Halifax, these teams that started playing in their own towns all came to the Northwest qualifiers.
And again, Jim, I've got to keep jumping in because obviously I'm learning and I'm trying to understand why we are not yet seeing British South coming into top flight football. Is that Javed Iqbal Bhai also manages? Was he also managing that Scottish qualifiers?
He's the link. So I think how it worked was the tournament organisers, and this was a SASA tournament, the one in Scotland. There was one in London, one in Leicester, etc. One in Birmingham, I think, as well. So the
one's in Celtic Park, isn't it?
Well, that's the SASA one. That's the one we went to. So he was the link for them. So they would contact him as the regional link, and then he would reach out to the other clubs and say, let's organise a qualifier, and whoever wins the qualifying tournament then goes through to represent the Northwest in the cup. So we've had some good success there. I've had success with both Canaries and Blackburn United, but I think the ultimate one is probably still to say that Blackburn United, I think it was in 2007. Reached the final.
When you reached the final, we've got a picture of you guys in the final as well. In just a minute, when our technical team loads that picture up for us. How did that final go? I mean, what kind of experience? So that's Celtic Park.
Yeah.
That's Celtic's football ground, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned about the bubble and stuff like that on the pitch, but
that was beautiful. It's like a copy, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't.
No, I haven't
played. I'd love to play there.
I didn't play, but before the game, that year, 2007. So I played in the qualifiers. And we qualified. Our manager was Nab Aslam at the time.
There we are. It's I think it's another picture there, and it's the one where they're all together with the squad. There we are.
That's the one, yeah.
If you could just look, I don't know if you could see that clearly, guys, viewers. That's the Blackburn United football team in 2007. Is that right?
2007, yeah. I remember that year. It was 2007.
Jimmy, there's a young you in there somewhere.
There's a young me in there with a tracksuit on. Unfortunately, that year after the qualifiers, I fell quite ill and I had to go for surgery. So I remember.
You look like you haven't aged.
I don't know, mate. There's a few more greys. There's a few more greys now than there were them days.
Look, I'm really, I couldn't. I've not been there myself, mate. Yeah, so for me, well done, a big well done to the whole team in 2007. Because from what I'm gathering, and from this short sports talk program and getting all this insight, is I'm kind of the bucket, and it's all going in this bucket, and I'm kind of getting a feel for it, and I'm thinking, okay, 10 years of dedication at Blackburn United, you've got through to pretty much all the levels you wanted to kind of get to, Jimmy. Am I right? Apart from the professional level, and that's what kind of begs the question. I mean, for you personally, where did you see yourself? I mean, did you see yourself? I mean, it might not even be your aspiration to be a professional footballer.
No.
Or were you kind of the community kind of player to kind of encourage others? Where did you see yourself?
In terms of football, when you're young, everybody has an aspiration to play football professionally of some kind, and don't really give it much thought. You think you're good enough. But in reality, I don't think I ever dreamt of being a professional. As I grew older, and I don't think even as a teenager, I dreamt of being a professional footballer.
No.
I was more grounded and realistic about going to study and going to have to work.
This is it, you see.
What I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, I actually did that. I went on to university, I went into my degree. My dad said, you have that all-important conversation, and he said, Dad, I'm at that point in my life now, and one avenue looks a bit
risky.
a bit risky. What do you suggest? And my dad said, son, namaz, roza, make sure you do your 5 pillars of Islam and make a living. Whether that's whatever that is, you want to do, but do something that's more realistic. Yeah. And henceforth the degrees for me and the business choice. But what I want to understand is when our players, like I'm trying to take you back in your days. At what point did you decide, do you know what, I'm confident, I'm getting into, qualifiers, I'm getting into all these positions, I'm being asked to play at, different places, and you're a centre midfielder.
Centre midfielder.
Yeah, so you're going from box to box, you're putting the hard yards in. I mean, what stage did you think, no, I don't want to do it?
I think at that point when you're playing football, I don't think I thought enough. I'm probably very similar to other players. Thought enough about, okay, can I get into semi-pro team? I think I got comfortable, like you do, playing with friends, playing locally. Once you start playing at semi-pro level or above, you're travelling.
It
takes a lot out of your day as well. Some of this, you know what I mean. And it's back to what I was saying, is how much dedication and that you want to apply to football. For me, I got comfortable playing locally and with friends, and I was content with that. I was quite happy. It was still competitive for me, and I wanted to.
Was your kind of passion fulfilled at that level?
For me, the passion was there at 90 minutes, regardless of where I played and who I played for. That, for those players that knew me, that 90 minutes I give it my all, and I think that's where the passion stayed. And I was comfortable. I never looked beyond that to think, do I want to go on? Because I think if you're going to make it, you need to be on a club's books at a young age. It's very, very exceptional that you get a player who hits 17, 18 and above, and a top level club comes and look at Ian Wright, Jamie Vardy, etc.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and again, it goes back to the mindset and the coaching and the pathways.
But even then, even these players, the Jamie Vardys, as you mentioned, and Ian Wright, etc., they've had a number of trials by that point, and they've been, used to being kind of going and being part of different academy teams, etc., just to try and break through before they got that one chance. So for us, myself and a lot of my friends here, for us, we were content with the fact that we wanted to play football. We played football with some of our mates, but we just wanted to compete week in, week out.
Keep fit.
Yeah, keeping fit probably came second, mate. Because if I'm honest with you, we could have done a lot more to keep fit. You know, maybe reflect back.
You could jump on the treadmill.
Yeah, I could tell you some stories about players having a cigarette at half time and things like that. I'm thinking, no. So keep fit is probably something. It's one of those learning things that we've learned over the years. But ultimately, I think it was just about playing football for me. I just wanted to play football.
Competitiveness,
absolutely competitive.
To demonstrate that I can play and we can play, and this is what I come to do. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now the reason why I mentioned that, Jimmy, is because I'm trying to put this all together, and I'm thinking, okay, if that was your kind of passion, and mine likewise, when I got to Accrington Stanley, and at that stage they were in the conference, I think. No, they've just getting into the conference, and I kind of sat there in the changing room, and I've never really told this to anybody, so you could be the first, and the viewers can listen in, and I honestly felt as though. What am I doing here? Yeah, I've got to where I wanted to be, and I didn't quite get the. I didn't get what I wanted to get from it, and I think one of the reasons why was nobody else was there. I felt a little bit out of place. I felt a little bit, what do I do kind of thing. I wasn't coached. I was basically still all on talent. And I got picked up from playing 7-a-side, then I got into Accrington Stanley Grass, and then I played a few games for Accrington Stanley, and then I had a pretty much a good run. I scored a few times, a lot of assists. I was playing up front. I'm an up front striker, but when it comes down to it, and I was sat in that changing room, and everybody was kind of getting on there, and I know a few friends, and I just felt as though there wasn't enough British South Asians in top flight football, and the type of game I wanted to play wasn't suited to the game. An English kind of a, up in the air kind of a strong tackle kind of thing. I was more technical minded. I was more about the Barcelonas and the Brussels and getting through balls. And when I finally got onto the pitch and it was all up in the air and it was hustle and a bustle and you're hardly getting any runs on the ball. So for me, I kind of stepped back myself. Would you feel, what's your opinion on that? Would you say that we are or can change our game set to fit a different type of a game set, or are we too set in our ways, Jimmy, to play the way we play? A Premiership type of a way.
I think there's 2 points there. Even the Premier League.
Do you understand my question?
Yeah, even the Premier League, there's many different types of football. I think how you are coached will ultimately help you to adapt your game in terms of that team you're playing for. But something else you touched on, which is important, is for anybody who wants to make it professionally, that sense of isolation that you said when you walked into the change room. Again, so some of that is not taught. So if you've got young players who are breaking through, and once you get to like the 14, 15, 16 age groups and you're in change rooms with probably kind of different culture, different kind of ways of life, and it's that adapting, it's being able to. Now,
that's part of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, but in our time, no parents were going to have that because they had never had that insight to be able to talk to you about that.
Yes.
But there's other parents now who are, sound-minded enough to understand that and talk to their child about it.
To feel isolated. How to fit it. I mean, I'm always keen to
just make them aware that you might feel like this because this is the environment that you're walking into, and how can you adapt? I think that's an important point as well.
What kind of message? And I'll move on to your coaching at the moment. That's what you're doing at Blackburn. What kind of message? In hindsight, what would you say to me? Or people like myself or juniors coming through now in them changing rooms, what kind of message would you give at that stage?
In terms of those that want to be a professional footballer?
Those that are feeling isolated, want to get to that position, and how do they gel in more? You've already answered half the question by saying is kind of catch it upstream from the ages of 7, 8 and 9. And then by the time they reach 15 or 16, they won't have that type of a scenario.
I think parents play a role in this. I think coaches.
Back to parents,
coaches. I think whoever's around that player can help and guide them and equip them in terms of kind of if they're going into professional level, then kind of what they need to be prepared for. And again, it's part of what I was saying before about coaches. It's not about the football. It's about the holistic development of that child, of that player. So some of that, all of that helps ultimately. But for me, it goes beyond that for me now. When I look back at it now, and I think to myself, if you had to give advice to a child about playing football, whether they want to be professional, whether somebody just wants to have a kick around. You know, I'm sure you'll get all the similar answers in terms of, you know, have the right attitude, you know, put in a lot more effort. What the effort you put in is what you get out of it on the pitch, etc., etc. And that I agree with all of that. But there's probably two other points I would make. I think one would be, you know, looking at it from our kind of religious, cultural perspective, respect your parents first of all, because I think in the current climate, I think a lot of our young players take for granted the amount of hard work and effort that parents put in, running around after them, you know, making sure they're up, they're fed, their kids are clean, etc., etc.
Absolutely.
You know, when I say parents, I mean even coaches, because some of the coaches take a parental role.
Yeah, of
course.
So
for me, it's about respect. In football, maintain respect both for your parents and the coaches, but for the opposition, because that's what somebody respect. That respect will be remembered. They say he was such a so and so that guy was. He was, you know, disrespectful. Wise.
Yeah,
let's use language which I probably can't repeat on this show, but
inappropriate,
absolutely. So respect is one thing, and you know, starts with your parents and your coaches. That. But secondly, I think for me, you know, as well as I agree about attitude and dedication, and you know, all of that is about taking football really seriously. For me, honestly, I would say to youngsters, enjoy it. Enjoy your football yourself, before, you know. For me,
express yourself.
For me, it ended a bit prematurely because I fell ill, but generally enjoy the football. We still at this age now, and with all the players, and even with Uncle Latch, when I speak with him, you know, he used to drag me to football. He used to live next door to me. So he used to drag me to football tournaments in the morning, get me out of bed. And when we look back at it now, whether it's with friends or whether it's with the older generation that played before us, we all reminisce and we have a laugh, and everybody's got a story to tell, and we talk about what kind of players we played with, and it's fun. We remember the fun bits. Yes, we remember some of the
not so fun bits.
Yeah, some of the issues we faced. You know, there were times where we had some, you know, kind of racial challenges on the pitch, some discreet, some quite obvious as well. But even when we talk about them, we talk about in a fun manner with our players and the people like teammates, etc. that were involved. Enjoy it, because when it's over, when you look back at it, you want to look back at things with fond memories. Enjoy it. It can end very quickly, so you know, have fun with it.
Enjoy the moment.
Honestly, have fun.
Live in the moment.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the moment. That's definitely a big message, because if I would have enjoyed the moment or lived in it, who knows where I'd be at. And that goes about a lot of people, really. Let's say I would excuse me, before the show I was reading up on the Blackburn United Twitter account, actually.
Oh yeah.
And you know, just checking out the logo, and I thought, you know what, there's a lot of noise being made about Blackburn United and, you know, the classic Hawthorn leagues. Obviously we're in Blackburn. I don't know what's going on in other parts of the country. But just looking at Blackburn alone, I'm sure a lot of that is being replicated. Yeah. They'll be very similar, coming from the same backgrounds, coming from the same, you know, kind of general consensus kind of thing. You know, I'm sure some of them struggles are being felt up and down the country. And I was reading that Twitter account, Jimmy, and there's a guy that you mentioned as well. Now I know he's mentioned a couple of times before on the show, Shaquille Butt.
Oh yeah.
Shaky Butt, and I was reading that Twitter, and he's been mentioned on that Twitter account by guys, you know, he's quick, he's fast, you know, he's talented, X, Y, and Z. And I know Shaky Butt, and I've played with him a couple of times. We've won the Council of Leaf together. You know, we played recently on grass together as well. And I would always say he's a talented player. I've definitely picked him before myself. You know, I pick him on my team first. Excuse me. And I'm thinking, this guy's, he's got the talent, he's got a personality, he's got a big enough personality, and he's got the passion. Yeah, and what is Blackburn United currently doing if they are seeing a player in the academies? How are they promoting him, and what are they currently doing, and what are we actually working on in our time, Blackburn, Accrington? What are we actually doing to kind of support that individual? Do we currently have a Shaky-like a person in Blackburn United?
In terms of ability?
Ability-wise?
Yeah, there's only one Shaky, as we all know. Ability-wise, I'm sure we do. I'm sure we do. We have some very talented... You mentioned
you do go down and watch the game.
We've got some very, very talented youngsters. And we've had a couple, you know, Hamza Box comes to mind, that's called Huzaifa, I think, you know, who's been signed up by local file, I think, signed up Hamza. So there are some local lads who have kind of gone on to a high level of football. But how do we open up doors for others? It's a really good question now, Hussain. I think, for me, I think we probably need to be a bit more outward looking in that respect, and trying to ensure that we invite... what we don't do is probably have enough contacts with scouts.
Okay.
or with clubs. And I don't mean just clubs in terms of, so if you go to Man City, we're doing a lot of work in the areas, in Blackburn like other areas, and what they would have, and I started talking to some parents who were telling me, oh, my son's on Man City books. What they realised is they were on the community club, not the academy. Elite, that's an elite level, and it's a community level club. So, and there was a bit of, and for me, I think, building them kind of, we're still a step in the right direction, do you know what I mean? And building relationships like that with clubs, starting with our local clubs, Blackburn, Preston, etc., Burnley, and the clubs around us, and then stepping out and trying to look for the bigger clubs, having scouts and relationship with scouts and inviting them to your games and to your training sessions. And it's a thankless task. You might send 100 letters out and you might get one, but that one might be the one.
Yeah, might be the one.
I think for us, there's a lot of work to do. This is forever evolving. Don't get me wrong. We've got
absolutely.
This is not to disregard any of the work that's currently going on, because I think it's phenomenal.
Absolutely. My hats off goes out to a lot of people.
I think we should continue with our youth development work.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we look to local businesses for investment, for sponsorship, for teams. We need to be looking at businesses to invest into the academies. I'm not about Blackburn United only. I'm talking about other towns as well. Looking at investing into the academies, so that making sure we've got the right equipment and etc. that we need for them players, the right pitches. And at the moment, trying to get when you've got so many teams in Blackburn United, I'm sure other towns experience the same challenge. When you've got so many teams, trying to find space for training them teams is a challenge, because
Are we finding that in Blackburn?
Yeah, sometimes you've got limit, because Blackburn United
saturation.
Blackburn United got a team of Hanif, I've got on face or creating some teams, etc. There's a lot of local teams. Alhamdulillah, we're blessed in Blackburn that we've got a decent structure.
I mean, that's a good problem to have.
It's a good headache to have.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got to stagger the times, and clubs need to work with each other. But I think sometimes investing into that academy setup, and also then reaching out and having the right contacts in clubs and with scouts, is kind of probably the next step. It's probably the next step we need to take.
For yourself, do you think? I mean, to me, it makes sense. Jimmy, I think you're right. I mean, that answers my question comprehensively, because I feel as though we are doing everything. I mean, Jimmy, I've played football. I've not played in Preston much, but I've played in Blackburn quite a bit. I played in Accrington quite a lot. I've seen many talented players, Jimmy, and my heart yearns and it burns, and I'm thinking, what's the difference? What's the difference between pros on TV and my friend over here doing what he does? And let's say, for the likes of Shaquille, but for argument's sake. And how many more years are we going to burn, Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't think this happens overnight. That's my only challenge, though. I think there's no magic wand. There's no recipe that you think this is going to work. I think what we've got now is where we were from, let's say 10 years ago. We've got a lot more children playing football now on grassroots level. 2 years ago we had an award night which Blackburn Rovers attended. The club, Tony Mowbray spent the whole evening with the players, the young players.
Sorry, I don't know. You'll have to educate me. Who is this?
Tony Mowbray is the Blackburn Rovers manager.
Right. Okay. He's a current manager. Is it? Okay. Right. Okay.
So he spent him, and there was a few other seniors, Gary Robinson from the trust. Spent some time, spent the whole evening with us, in fact, and spent
you
time.
Was there
we were there. It was a presentation night. So at the end of the season, we were giving trophies out.
As a senior within the BBU, yeah.
So I was presenting some of the girls, and different coaches got up and presented trophies to their teams. Spent the whole night, took time out, took photos with the young players, etc., etc.
And so all that's going on.
And he said the same. He goes, God, I didn't realise, because as I was chatting to him afterwards on the side of the stage, and we were having we ate together at the meal, and he was saying, all these footballers, he goes, where are they all? Because I don't see them. Now, from a Blackburn Rovers perspective, it's not just about players playing football and breaking into academy teams, but it was about the terraces as well. They were thinking, we don't see the football. And I jokingly said to him, I said, get 1 or 2 Asian players in the first team, you see the terraces full. But there's any the truth in that. For some towns, Luton, Blackburn, Preston, Bradford, some of them towns, you might see that if there's a local lad playing who's got a bit of a following around him, it can happen. But I said a bit of tongue in cheek with him. But he was impressed with the level of football. And what I'm saying is, from 10 years ago to where we are now, there's more opportunities. Football's more accessible for our youngsters. So we're heading in the right direction. Don't be impatient. We've still got some work to do.
Don't be impatient, he says.
We've got work to do. We've got to look within.
I'm getting impatient, Jimmy, I'll be honest with you.
We've got to look at ourselves, think, have we got all the academy setups right? Are we working together properly? Have we got our diet, the education on football, etc.?
We're still in the education phase, are we?
Are we culturally adapted yet? Are we reaching out to the scouts to come and watch some of our games, etc.? And our players playing on the pitch with the right attitude. I remember going to play at Scotland and in my first year, and you get some very good, I'm not sure they were professional level, but they can't have been far off, high semi-pro level, and you watch them play, and the way they zip the ball and the first touch kills it, and the way they make the run, and you think to yourself, we need to learn. We're not, there's a gap. We're not. We think we're great, but you know what? We've got a long way to go. And sometimes there's a reality check, but that doesn't mean you can't be aspirational. And some of our players have got potential. We just need to make sure we've got the right ingredients around them to be able to reach that potential.
And the right support team and the sport network around them to get to that potential. Jimmy, that's absolutely classical. That. Just on a final topic, we're always short of time here, Jimmy. I tell you that. And it's when the heart is involved, time is. Just go through a wall. You're currently coaching at Blackburn United now.
I am.
Are you currently? So you're no longer playing after your?
No, I couldn't play. I played a little bit of seven-a-side for Shaky, but interesting enough, a couple of seasons. After the operation, a few years later.
That's at Whitton, is it?
At Whitton, yeah. But
you're not playing, so you've moved into.
He's trying to tap me back up, but I'm holding back.
Yeah. He's non-stop, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great, isn't he? But no, so I support him. When I stopped playing, I did support the first team initially. Me and a guy called Abi Salam were helping manage the first team, and we did that for a couple of years. But managers always evolve and change, and I stepped away from football and started supporting some of the youth teams. And currently, we a few years ago, five years ago, we started introducing the concept of Asian girls football in Blackburn. And we kept getting approached by parents asking us at the club to say, is there no opportunity for young girls to come and play? And we want to create a safe environment. It was positive in the sense that parents and the community felt we were trustworthy to be able to do this with our young women in the community. So we set up some training sessions, and we started getting some good attendance. And we've been running for about 5-6 years now. We have 2 age groups. We have we call them the senior girls, because the problem with the girls group is it's not like the under 40s where we've got enough players for one age group. So we just have a senior team, so anybody who's 16 to 18, 19 will form one team. And they've competed last 2 seasons in leagues locally, 7-a-side leagues, etc., 9-a-side leagues, and done extremely well. Everyone undefeated in the last one. Typically, what always happens is
in the entire league,
they were undefeated. But before the league finished, the league had to be stopped because the winter league was starting. And the problem with women football is at the moment there's still too many dropouts from other teams. But that senior girls team, we'd worked with them for 4 or 5 years, and they were great. And culturally as well, they moved on. Some of them are now, most of them are now educating, doctors and pharmacists and optometrists, etc. And they're really well. But what we did was, with that first cohort, we got them FA qualified. Our long-term plan was, if we get a cohort of qualified coaches, there'll be no need for myself or Ishmael Muller, who Ishi Gray again puts hours and hours into Blackburn United youth team, girls team, senior team. His weekends are dominated by football. Now Ishi and I always thought, phenomenal, lovely guy as well. So we just thought, if we can get these girls qualified as coaches, as the younger ones, so we have a younger group as well, between kind of 10 to 13. They can coach them and build their skills. So eventually, Ishi and I could take a slight back seat, not because we wanted to, but because we wanted to become
kind of empower them,
train the young women, empower them to be able to take it on. And so we have got some qualified, and as they come into the next cycle of their life and they come out of university, etc., they may come to a point where they invest. We've even got some of them qualified as coaches, as referees. One of our young women refereed games every weekend before she went to university. We've just kept them involved in football.
Ismail also mentioned 35 referees, the largest women referees in the UK or the country, I believe it was. I think, is that the same?
I think the young girl we had refereeing probably wasn't. She did the junior teams. Ishmael's probably thinking of more senior players. But
kind of get them into that same process. I think it might be a different process, but definitely the line is the same.
Yeah, we went through LFA. They were funding, and Lancashire Football Association supported us in getting them coached and getting them coaching qualification, getting them a referee qualification for them at some point in their life to invest back in women's football.
Absolutely. And are you doing it the same for the boys as well?
In terms of refereeing and coaching, yes. All the coaches who manage the teams are all qualified in Blackburn United, or should be working towards qualifications, and some of them will choose to be referees, but quite often you find they want to referee after they stop. Either you can't play or you stop playing when you referee. That's my view.
And what's the just coming towards the end of the show, Jimmy, what I want to say to you is, first of all, a question: what kind of messages are you giving out to the lads who are doing really well, and how to keep their feet on the ground? What kind of mindset do you think they should possess moving into the next tier of challenge, i.e. the age groups. Because surely as the age groups, as they grow, the challenges get tougher and tougher, the pace gets quicker. What kind of messages are you currently driving home?
I think from our perspective, I think first and foremost, we always ensure that it's remain humble. I think that's a key issue for us, because that sets your attitude about playing football. And then beyond that, I think it's about working hard and dedicating. If that's what you want to do, then you've got to put the hours in. You've got to train hard, you've got to play hard, you've got to be committed 100%. But like I said to you earlier, in all of that, don't forget to enjoy it. Have fun. Because 20 years later, when you're like me and you can't play,
and you're going to miss it.
Yeah, and you miss it. We do still play a little bit amongst the lads, but not like it used to be. You will look back and you will reminisce and talk about the good times and the friends you've made. And then like I said, I've got friends from very, very young age that genuinely I only got to know them through football. For most of my early life with them was just related to football and on the pitch together, or training together, in the change room together. And beyond football, they become very close friends, lifelong friends. And so enjoy it, value them friendships, and don't forget that respect for parents.
Absolutely,
and
that was it. That was my final message. I think. Would you like to get any? I mean, that's very nicely wrapped up, Jimmy. I totally appreciate that. I'm sure my viewers will appreciate that. And if the youth are listening today, even if it's at Blackburn United, I'm sure most of them will. They could draw a lot of information from that. I know we've had to cut it short. There's a lot of areas you've opened that we can kind of go into a lot more, but we have to keep things moving here, Jimmy. Here at UCTV Sports Talk TV. What's your final message today for us all, then, Jimmy?
In terms of football, have fun.
And life, in terms of
life, stay safe. I think that's what I'm going to say. I think stay safe. I think we're going through a pandemic. It's unprecedented times, and people are mixed up in these mixed messages about whether the COVID is real or not, or the vaccine is going to mutate you into an X-Man or something. I said, you know what? Stay on the safe side. Stay home, stay safe. The vaccines are out. Hopefully, inshallah, we'll come through this in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months to a sense of normality. And then it'll be business as usual back on the pitch. So keep working.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Jimmy. I totally appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks a lot for your insight. Please do carry on with all the effort and the passion you're putting into our youth today. And my salams and well-being for everybody involved within your circuit. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So, viewers, there we have it. You have your episode 11 with Imran Akuji. Jimmy has given us insight today. Some very valuable information there, ranging from youth, academy level, Blackburn United, right the way through to life and development skills and leadership skills, and what we carry forward. Making friends on the pitch and making them friends right the way through your lifetime, and making sure you enjoy yourself. So on this occasion, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. It's your host, Hussain Mahmood, bringing you live debates on UCTV. I do hope, as Jimmy mentioned also, that you do stay safe, keep a positive, helpful mindset, have a look out for others, see if there's any help or any support that we can give them. It's our community. Build your community around us, help the neighbours, and help everybody you can around you to create a better, safer community. Thank you very much on this occasion. And I look forward to seeing you next week, Monday, 7 PM, live on UCTV. It's your host, Hussain Mahmood, signing.